Good to go? All right. So good afternoon, everyone. I am thrilled to be here today to announce that through months of collaboration and a lot of creativity, our First in the Nation initiative to invest directly in Connecticut kids is closer to becoming a reality. We have reached an agreement regarding funding, which will ultimately save taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars and make sure that we fully fund the baby bond program up front. Through this funding source, back in 2019, we restructured the Teachers Retirement Fund. And as part of that, we put $381 million into a reserve fund that was there to protect bondholders. Through the work of the governor and our legislature, we have improved our fiscal health as a state, and we are now in a position that we can shift that reserve fund directly into the baby bond trust fund, and we will have an insurance policy that will cost a minimal amount of money and cover that security for bondholders. It repurposes those cash reserves and allows us to take that money and invest it up front over an extended period of time to fund the program. Coming up with this solution was a tough needle to thread, and I want to say thank you to strong collaboration from the governor, from the legislature, from the Black and Puerto Rican caucus in getting us to this point. And this funding proposal ultimately, again, fully funds the program, does not require us to borrow or bond for any portion of the funding, does not require any monies from the budget, and doesn't have any ongoing budget support. It reduces the initial cost of the program by more than $200 million. It saves approximately $165 million in interest costs compared to the bonded program as initially offered, and allows us to launch the program on time, investing $3,200 on behalf of each child born on Husky here in Connecticut. Connecticut Baby Bonds is an opportunity for us to transform what the future can look like for thousands of Connecticut kids. It invests directly in people, and while we're doing so much work to improve our overall fiscal health, paying down pension debt, a full rainy day fund, making historic investments in education and childcare and housing, this is an example of how we can invest directly in people and think about the long-term future for lifting up all of our residents. With that money that's invested, $3,200 on behalf of each child, that money will grow over the life of that individual. And between the ages of 18 and 30, they will be able to make a claim for those proceeds to use them for designated purposes, ultimately around helping to build wealth and create a better future. It can be used for purchasing a home here in Connecticut, for starting or investing in a Connecticut business, for paying for post-secondary education or job training, or for retirement savings. The reason we had such broad-based support for this program and that why we have such a broad base of support with us here today is that this program will help uplift the entirety of our state beyond just the tens of thousands of kids who will participate in it. The kids from all 169 cities and towns across our state will benefit from the program. These proceeds will be reinvested back into our state, particularly into communities where these kids are living now, oftentimes communities that have been underinvested in. And it's really a shot to help break the cycle of generational poverty for so many who have lived in it. And this is sending a resounding message that your future can be bright regardless of what zip code you are born in and regardless of what family you are born into. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to some of the folks who have had such a critical role in getting us to this point. And with that, I will start by turning it over to our friend, Senator Looney.
Thank you so much, Mr. Treasurer. This is really a day to celebrate, because we all recognized when we passed the baby bonds program that we were looking to do something that could be transformative for young people who often don't come into any kind of an inheritance at any time. in their lives, as opposed to those from wealthier families who do. In many ways, this program is somewhat analogous to the Promise program, which has been set up in New Haven, Hartford, and some other places, that provides hope for students who might not otherwise be able to go to college, that there is a fund set up that they can access, and they know now that college may actually be within reach. This program is going to be a little more diverse in its application, that expenses can be used for higher ed, but for other purposes, as the treasurer mentioned. So it is an investment in young people who frequently have no one investing in them, and this is something that can be transformative in their lives. I want to thank the governor, I want to thank the speaker, I want to thank the treasurer for coming up with a creative way to fund this program to meet its goals, to do so in a way that does not tax our bonding capacity or any of our other financing mechanisms, for which there are so many competing claims right now. So again, congratulations.
Now I'd like to turn it over to someone who has been a huge champion from this program from the very beginning, and has a huge part to do with us getting here today, Speaker Matt Ritter.
So after the election in November, one of the first calls I got was from the newly elected treasurer. He said, "I want to talk with you." I said, "What about?" He said, "Baby bonds." I said, "Okay, well, let's block off an hour for that one. We're going to need a little time." But you know what I really admire about Eric and everybody who's here behind me, I know we're going to hear from other legislators, is in this building, there's two reactions you can have when you are unable to solve the problem as quickly as you'd like to. You can give up. You can just say, well, we tried and we couldn't find a way. Treasurer Russell and his team spent months thinking of different ways to fund the program. And if it weren't for that work ethic, the power of ideas, we may not be standing here today. So although you're quick to give a lot of credit, it was you and your team that helped put this deal together. And I think which makes a lot of us really happy to be here today is in 2021, when we passed that budget, there were two big things that we sort of used as the legs of the stool, so to speak, on equity at that time. Remember, 2020 was a rough summer in this country for a lot of reasons. We were coming off of COVID and everything that had happened, starting with the George Floyd incident and things that happened from there in Louisville and thereafter. And one was the Community Investment Fund, which the governor has been a true partner every single step of the way on that since we enacted that program. And it has sent over $150 million to distressed municipalities in our state, with hundreds of millions of dollars promised every year for the next 7 years. And this was the second leg of that stool that got so many people excited about what that budget did. So a couple years had gone by, but we got there. And it's really not about yesterday, it's about tomorrow. And this is a great promise for tomorrow for a lot of young residents in our state, and I'm proud to support it. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to turn it over to a group, really, that was really the impetus for us getting here from the very beginning. And I was fortunate to walk in after much work was done to get us to a point that legislation was passed. And it was really the Black and Puerto Rican caucus that spearheaded that. And so I'd like to turn it over to Senator Pat Billie Miller and the BPRC to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to acknowledge Representative Reyes and Representative Gibson for their hard work on the original bill, which became law. Chair of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, I'm elated to have worked beside the Treasurer's Office and the Governor's Office in making sure that baby bonds is fully funded. I want to ask my members, how many of you were born in poverty? We were born in poverty, and we stand here today because we were given the opportunity to be lifted out of poverty and to stand here today. That's why we are so supportive and we're so passionate about baby bonds becoming law, because as the senator said, we want to give those children who are born in poverty an opportunity an opportunity to success, an opportunity to buy a home, an opportunity to save the money in retirement, an opportunity to purchase, I said a home, but to also go to school. And so when you are born in poverty, we were laughing about eating government cheese. I've eaten government cheese because my family couldn't afford to feed us. And so I've had government cheese. And I never want to forget that. But the children today that are in poverty, these children are struggling, and I don't want them to have to go through what I went through. I don't want them to be hungry. I want them to have a hope and a dream to want something better and to do better. So to the governor and to the treasurer, I want to say thank you so much for making sure that these young men and women have an opportunity to success. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Geraldo Reyes, and I am from Waterbury. And I ran on the principles of funding baby bonds, passing baby bonds, and I've been advocating for baby bonds because the face of the children that I foresee in the upcoming future after July 1st, 2023 is the very face of my own. These are Black, Latino, and white children that are born with less than and really almost always have no path out and there's no recourses but the wrong ones. This here could be an economic engine to keep these kids in the state of Connecticut that we keep talking about, the kids graduating and leaving. This could be one of the reasons why they stay, because they can actually now participate in the economic engine formed from the baby bond relationship. I can't tell you, I'm ecstatic. I'm happy that this day is finally here. We're going to continue to advocate for programs just like this. This is the tip of the iceberg. And I want to leave you with this. We had to find a different way to fund baby bonds because we didn't want to bond it, but we're talking about our most important resources, and it's our children. I want to leave you with that thought. Very important that we actually put our money where our mouth is and invest in the future of Connecticut, which is the children. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. And so with that, I want to turn it over to our governor, who has been an incredible partner along the way. And I know that, again, this was a path for us to get here today. But from the time that I stepped into office, we have been in communication about how to get there. We have been looking for solutions to address the very real concerns that the governor had around funding the program. And I'm proud to say that we are all standing together today with a better, more cost-effective way of following through on Connecticut baby bonds. So with that, I'll turn it over to the governor.
Yeah, I called up Eric, say congratulations for being elected our next treasurer, and he said, fun, now let's talk about baby bonds. I said, that's great. I said, maybe, you know, I think it's really important what baby bonds means, what it means for hope, what it means for our young people born into poverty, give them a sense of direction, give them a sense of, at the end of 18 years, this is what you've got and what it means going forward. But I got to admit, I was a bit of a fly in the ointment, too. I was also asking some tough questions. And I pushed Eric pretty hard. I did say, look, I don't want to do something that's going to saddle taxpayers with $200 million in interest. I don't think that's the way to do it. Eric said, I can fix that. I said, you know, Eric, I like time to own. I like the money we're putting in place to provide a free workforce training. I don't want to take away money from the general fund to handle, to do that. And Eric said, don't worry, I can get that done. And I said, show me. And he showed me. I mean, I love people that come up with solutions. And Eric, you know, through a lot of really smart entrepreneurial thinking and innovation, came up with a way that we can get $380 million set aside virtually in perpetuity to provide each of these kids $3,200, which is going to grow and be invested and represent $10,000, $15,000 when they turn 18. that's one more reason to stay in the state of Connecticut, by the way, for 18 years or 30 years. And that extra money can go in alongside Time to Own and help you buy that home. It can go in alongside our booster fund and allow you to start up that business you want to do. It can go in alongside our workforce or our debt-free community college to make sure you're on that elevator to success. And Pat, Billie Miller, and Jerry just reminded me, because I was often saying, I guess a lot, you know, I want to help people now. I don't want to wait 18 years. And Pat just said, give them something to hope for. Give them a sense that at the age of 18, this is going to be money, that this is their money that they can invest in their future. Or we're just giving them a little bit more of a helping hand to help them get forward. So to that, I really thank the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus and the legislative leadership. You've been pushing me along the way, and you never stop pushing. Thanks, buddy.
So I just want to say a few thank yous to everyone involved in making this a reality. Again, the BPRC who really led the charge on this, the governor for being so clear about his priorities and funding, legislative leadership. I'd also like to say thank you to Treasurer Sean Wooden, who was in office and really spearheaded this initiative. Dr. Derek Hamilton, the economist who developed the concept of baby bonds and is working so actively across the country. And then so many national leaders who have provided support on this front. Many of our federal delegation, also to Senator Cory Booker, who ran as part of this being part of his platform when he ran for president, and who has offered and introduced legislation to this effect on the federal level. It really has been a true team effort, and I think because of that, we've landed in a place where not only are we making this long-term investment and really lifting kids and communities up in our state, but we did so in a way that we could all come together and really have the best solution at the end of it. So thank you all. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Well, what's the ballpark? The governor just mentioned 10 or 15,000 at current interest rates. Can you make it sharper than that for us?
Sure. So the expectation is, again, between ages 18 and 30, so it depends on when that's accessed. The kind of calculation we've used is between $11,000 and $24,000, depending on when it's accessed, and that's on the same assumed rate of return as our pension funds.
If a child is born eligible in the next year, turns 18, 20, whatever, they live in, say, Virginia or California, are they still eligible for these funds?
So you have to be a Connecticut resident in order to be eligible when you make the claim for baby bonds. You also have to complete a financial literacy course as part of that. And so there are requirements in place in order to access the funds, and we'll obviously be working to flesh out regulations around that as well to kind of further define those rules.
Can you regs done in this session, this legislative session now?
They will be looking at them at a future session. Again, we have some time because this is going to be growing over the life of the child. So with July 1st being the first eligible cohort of children born, it wouldn't be until 18 years down the road that we would have the first claim actually processed.
And how stubborn was the governor on this?
The governor was very clear about the things that he wanted to see, and we came to the table again with a really open mind on how to do this, wanting to think creatively about the best way to get there. And I think, I think that type of dialogue, I think that type of back and forth is how, in any process or in any legislation, is how you get to the best result, right? And so I think if you look at that back and forth, if you look at some of the push from the governor's office, it ultimately allowed us to land here, saving taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I think that collaboration was very effective.
And actuarially, how many Husky kids would be eligible every year about?
So it's upwards of 15,000 kids every year that are born whose births are covered by Husky.
So this was, the administration didn't want to allocate money yearly and didn't want to bond for it. So this is money that was sort of found, so to speak. I guess for the governor, what was the administration's thinking about this money, this $381 million, prior to these discussions? Was it something that was going to?
So it wasn't We proposed we were thinking through a lot of different ways to do it. It wasn't initially that there couldn't be any money out of the general fund. It wasn't that we couldn't bond anything. We were looking at a combination of different ways to really approach this. And we ultimately came up with this solution that happened to address all of these issues. Again, I think part of looking at where being able to access this $381 million is a function of the progress that we've made as a state over the last several years.
Yeah, what I'm asking is separate and apart from baby bonds, looking at it from the other direction, what else, where was this money going to go? This is part of the pay down of the pensions, I guess, right?
So it sits in a reserve fund right now, and it was scheduled to be released in 2032. And the legislation is set up that it would then go back into the budget reserve fund in 2032.
You guys have money everywhere.
To jump off of that question, could you just go into a little further more detail about where the 38-1 is coming and how the program is being funded?
Sure. So in 2019, we restructured our teachers' retirement fund. Back in 2008, bonds were issued to add funds to the teachers' retirement fund. Because of that, when we did the restructuring, we had to provide additional security to bondholders. And so this money was set aside out of 2019 surplus and was put in this reserve fund to provide that additional security in the event that the state failed to make a debt service payment. Obviously, we're in a very different place, multiple upgrades to our bond rating, a full rainy day fund. What it has now allowed us to do is issue an insurance policy to cover that same fund in the event that we were not able to make a debt service payment. And we've been able to free that up now and move it over. So we'll be able to take all of this money, we'll be able to pay for the actual insurance policy out of this fund as well, and then we'll be able to fully invest that approximately $381 million. And that we have a much longer ramp for that money to grow in terms of investment earnings, which is how we're able to bring the cost down from the $600 million, which was initially proposed in bonding over a 12-year window, to fully funding the program with this $381 million.
So the funding was put aside in 2019, and that's where we're taking it from. So for taxpayers who are concerned, hey, this is going to come out of my taxes, that's not right.
Correct. This is all money that was surplus from 2019, and so it's cash. We're not borrowing anything, but it's repurposing it rather than it sitting in this account and not really working for us over the next 9 or 10 years. We're able to take this money and really put it to use in a way that's most productive for the state and for taxpayers.
And after the $381 billion, is there I know they were so far out because these kids have to be born and then 18 years from now, but will then we put more money into it later?
So I think that's something we'll have to revisit as a state and as a legislature down the road. But the program, as passed in legislation, is a 12-year program, so 12 cohorts of kids. Again, my responsibility I felt coming in was that we had legislation in place, and I wanted to do everything that we could do to stay true to that legislation. But at the same time, look for creative ways to fund this that would ultimately save taxpayer monies. And so I think from the policy and legislative side, I think in the future, those are things that the legislature and those in elected office at the time could revisit. That's a good reminder. I want to give so much credit to the folks standing here and who have supported this, because I think when you think about policy and you think about legislation, it is very hard for folks who are in office and who are thinking about being reelected to make some of these long-term investments. Chances are the folks standing up here will not be in office when kids benefiting from this program are going to receive these funds. And so it took a huge act of political courage to do this, and I want to give folks a lot of credit for doing that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see that.
Thank you.